Most people think they'll feel wealthy someday. Not rich, just comfortable. A paid-off home, a healthy savings account, the freedom to stop worrying every time an unexpected bill arrives. And if you ask most people how long that should take, the answer is usually surprisingly optimistic. 5 years, maybe 10. Work hard, save money, invest consistently, and eventually things should fall into place. At least that's the story we're told. But the reality is very different. Because nobody tells you how long wealth actually takes. Not social media, not personal finance books, and definitely not the people showing off their success online. What most people see is the result, the nice house, the investment portfolio, the successful business, the early retirement. What they don't see is the decade or two that came before it. The years when nothing seemed to happen. The years when progress felt invisible. The years when quitting would have been easy. And that's exactly why so many people give up before wealth has a chance to work. Because they mistake slow progress for no progress. And that misunderstanding can cost them millions. Let's start with the biggest lie about wealth. The lie isn't that wealth is impossible. The lie is that wealth is fast. Open any social media platform and you'll find people becoming successful overnight. A 25-year-old driving a luxury car. A trader turning a few $1,000s into a fortune. An entrepreneur making 6 figures every month. It creates the impression that wealth arrives suddenly, like a lightning strike. One big opportunity, one smart investment, one lucky break, and then everything changes. But that's rarely how real wealth works. Most wealth is painfully boring. It's years of saving when nobody notices. Years of investing when the numbers still look small. Years of saying no to things you can technically afford. Years of making decisions that don't feel rewarding in the moment. The problem is that our brains aren't designed to appreciate slow progress. We're wired to notice immediate rewards, not rewards that arrive 10 years later. That's why people quit the gym. It's why people abandon businesses, and it's why many people stop investing. The effort is happening today, but the reward feels too far away, so they assume it isn't working. Imagine 2 people. Both start with nothing. Both save and invest consistently. After 1 year, neither feels wealthy. After 2 years, neither feels wealthy. After 3 years, the difference is still hard to notice. And that's where most people lose patience. Because wealth doesn't grow in a straight line. It grows in a curve. At first, the curve looks almost flat. The progress is real, but it doesn't feel real. Which brings us to the first major milestone, the first $10,000. Financially, $10,000 isn't life-changing, but psychologically, it's huge. Because it's proof. Proof that your efforts are producing results. Proof that you're capable of building something. Proof that you're moving forward. The challenge is that reaching your first $10,000 often feels harder than expected. Every dollar matters. Every setback hurts. A surprise expense can erase months of progress. And that's why so many people never make it past this stage. Not because they're incapable, because they become discouraged. The gap between expectation and reality becomes too large. They expected wealth to feel closer. Instead, it still feels distant. But here's what many people fail to realize. The first $10,000 isn't valuable because of the money. It's valuable because of the habits, the discipline, the patience, the ability to delay gratification. Those skills matter far more than the number itself, and they become even more important as your wealth grows. Quick question. How long do you think it should take an average person to become financially comfortable? 5 years? 10 years? 20 years? Pause for a second and think about your answer. Then leave it in the comments. I'm curious to see what people expect, because by the end of this video, you might look at that number very differently. Now let's talk about the milestone everyone loves to discuss: $100,000. For many people, this number feels impossible. But investors often describe it as the hardest milestone of all, not because it's the biggest, because it's the point where momentum finally begins to appear. When you're starting from zero, every dollar comes from your effort, your salary, your side hustle, your work. But as your investments grow, something changes. Your money starts helping. Returns become larger. Growth becomes faster. Progress becomes easier to see. And for the first time, wealth begins to feel real. This is where compounding starts revealing its power. Not because it suddenly appears, because it's finally large enough to notice. Think of it like pushing a massive boulder uphill. At the beginning, every step feels difficult. The boulder barely moves. But eventually, momentum starts helping you. The same force that once resisted you now works in your favor. That's how wealth behaves. The hardest years are usually the earliest years. Not because they're the most important financially, because they're the most difficult emotionally. And that's where most people quit. Not at the bottom, but right before progress becomes visible. They save for a few years, invest consistently, make sacrifices, then look around and think, is this really worth it? The portfolio still looks small. The lifestyle doesn't feel dramatically different. The finish line seems impossibly far away. So they stop. And when they stop, the compounding process stops with them. What they don't realize is that the wealth curve was about to change. Because wealth isn't linear. The first half often takes longer than the second half. The first decade feels slow. The second decade feels surprising. The same habits, the same strategy, the same person. Completely different results. This is the part nobody talks about. The years where nothing exciting happens. Because those years don't make good headlines. Nobody posts screenshots of patience. Nobody goes viral for consistency. Nobody gets attention for quietly investing month after month. But that's exactly how most wealth is built. Not through extraordinary moments, through ordinary actions repeated for extraordinary lengths of time. And that's why understanding the timeline matters. If you think wealth should happen in 3 years, you'll be disappointed. If you think it should happen in 5 years, you'll probably feel behind. But if you understand that meaningful wealth often takes 10, 15, or 20 years, something changes. The slow progress stops feeling like failure, because you finally realize you're exactly where you're supposed to be. The truth is that most people dramatically overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year, and dramatically underestimate what they can accomplish in 10. That's the trap. And that's also the opportunity. Because while most people are searching for shortcuts, wealth is quietly rewarding consistency. Day after day, month after month, year after year. The people who eventually succeed aren't always the smartest. They're not always the highest earners, and they're not always the most talented. They're often the people who stayed committed long enough to let time do its job. Because wealth is not a sprint. It's not even a marathon. It's a process of becoming the kind of person who can remain patient while everyone else is chasing speed. And once you understand that, something powerful happens. You stop asking, why am I not rich yet? And start asking, am I still moving forward? Because that's the question that actually matters. The people who build wealth aren't usually the people who move fastest. They're the people who keep moving when progress is hard to see. And that's why nobody tells you how long wealth takes. Because if they did, fewer people would believe it. But now you know. And that knowledge might be one of the most valuable financial advantages you can have.